This is the story of how I found my wife's photo on an escort site. She'd been fucking for money throughout our entire marriage. I've always considered myself a rational man, a family man. My life revolved around my wife, Emily, and our 5-year-old daughter, Clara. Weekdays were predictable. Wake up at 6, coffee with Emily, drive Clara to kindergarten, and then off to my job at a tech firm. Weekends? Reserved for pancakes, parks, and the occasional Netflix binge. Routine, comfort, stability. That's what I loved most about my life. At least I thought I did, until the night I saw the photos. It started innocently enough. Clara was already tucked into bed, clutching her favorite stuffed rabbit while Emily was in the kitchen wiping down the counters. I was lounging on the couch, scrolling mindlessly through social media. That's when an ad popped up. One of those poorly targeted banners on a random site. "Looking for love?" it asked, accompanied by a grid of smiling faces. I almost scrolled past it, but then my hand froze. One of the faces, one of the women, looked eerily familiar. My thumb hovered over the image as my pulse quickened. It wasn't just a passing resemblance, it was Emily, my wife. I clicked the ad. It took me to some generic dating site with the tagline, "Real people, real connections." The page loaded slowly, and for a moment I hoped it was some elaborate trick, a prank, or maybe even a coincidence. But when the profile appeared, my heart sank. There she was, Emily. Same warm brown eyes, same auburn hair that she always twisted into a bun when she was focused. The profile listed her as Madeline, 33, with interests in hiking, wine tasting, and casual fun. My Emily didn't even like wine. She'd always said it tasted like vinegar. The bio was short, but devastating. "Looking for someone to bring excitement back into my life. Let's keep it light and fun. Discretion appreciated." Discretion appreciated. Those words hit me like a sucker punch. My mind raced. Was she cheating on me? Was this her way of escaping our so-called predictable life? My fingers trembled as I clicked through the photos. There were 3 of them. All recent, all unmistakably her. One showed her smiling in our backyard. Another was taken at the beach from our trip last summer. The third was more intimate. A close-up of her face, lips parted slightly, a look I'd once thought was reserved for me. I sat there staring at the screen, my breathing shallow and uneven. Rationality began to crumble, giving way to anger, confusion, and fear. But even through the haze of emotions, something didn't add up. Emily hated social media. She barely used her phone beyond texting me or calling her mom. She wasn't the type to put herself out there like this. And yet, the photos were real. "Hey, honey, can you take out the trash?" Emily's voice pulled me back to reality. She stood in the doorway, dish towel slung over her shoulder, looking as serene as ever. The thought of confronting her then and there crossed my mind, but I hesitated. I needed to be sure. I needed proof. I mumbled something about doing it later and quickly closed the laptop before she could see. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed beside her, listening to the soft rhythm of her breathing. My mind replayed every moment of our marriage, searching for signs I might have missed. Had she been distant lately? Not really. Busy maybe, but who wasn't? Was there someone else? A coworker? An old flame? The questions gnawed at me, each one more insidious than the last. The next morning, Emily greeted me with her usual smile, completely oblivious to the storm brewing inside me. I wanted to believe her innocence, but the images on that screen had etched themselves into my brain. Over breakfast, I decided to investigate further. "What time's your meeting today?" I asked casually, stirring my coffee. 9:30, she replied, buttering toast for Clara. "Why?" "Just wondering, thinking of stopping by your office later. Maybe grab lunch?" Her expression brightened. "That'd be nice. I could use a break." Her reaction seemed genuine, too genuine, but I wasn't ready to drop it. Not yet. After dropping Clara at kindergarten, I called in sick and returned home. Once inside, I opened my laptop and logged back onto the dating site. Emily's profile was still there, still active. I created a fake account, nothing elaborate, just enough to browse profiles and send a message. With shaking hands, I typed, "Hi, Madeline. Your profile caught my eye. Tell me more about yourself." I hit send. Part of me hoped she wouldn't reply, that this was some cruel joke or identity theft scheme, but deep down, I knew the truth would come crashing down sooner or later. By the afternoon, a message pinged back. "Thanks for reaching out. Tell me about yourself first." The pit in my stomach deepened. The phrasing, the flirty tone, it was familiar, but not quite her. I needed to know who I was dealing with. That night, I kept the charade going. Emily was in the kitchen helping Clara with a school project, and I slipped into the study. I messaged Madeline, again, keeping it vague, but pressing for details. The more I probed, the clearer it became. This wasn't Emily. The responses felt calculated, generic, like someone trying to mimic her personality but missing the mark. Then it hit me. The photos. Someone had access to her pictures, but who and why? I decided to dig deeper. Emily kept most of our photos on her phone or in cloud storage. I'd never paid much attention to it before, but now every login, every upload felt like a potential breach. My mind raced with possibilities. An old friend, a coworker, someone trying to sabotage her. or us? As the night wore on, my suspicion turned to paranoia. But one thing was clear. Whoever was behind this, they were close enough to steal pieces of her life, and I was going to find them. I decided to dig deeper. Emily kept most of our photos on her phone or in cloud storage. I'd never paid much attention to it before, but now every log and every upload felt like a potential breach. My mind raced with possibilities. An old friend? A coworker? Someone trying to sabotage her or us? The next day, while Emily was at work, I began piecing together the breadcrumbs. I checked our shared devices and noticed an old tablet we hadn't used in months. It sat on the bookshelf, half buried under a pile of papers. When I powered it on, the battery warning blinked, but not before I saw an unfamiliar email address. Logged in. The email was registered under a name I didn't recognize. Raina Harper. I opened it and found a folder labeled Private. My fingers hovered for a moment, unsure if I was ready to dive into something that could shatter my world further. But curiosity and dread outweighed hesitation. Inside the folder were dozens of photos, all of Emily, all candid. Some were from vacations, others from moments she'd spent alone in the house, clearly unaware of the camera. My breath caught as I scrolled. These weren't just stolen. They were intimate glimpses into her life, moments I didn't even remember taking. But the final photo stopped me cold. It was a selfie, taken in what looked like a hotel room. She was smiling, her hair slightly tousled, and wearing a dress I hadn't seen before. The timestamp was recent, less than a month ago. My blood ran cold. This wasn't just a random hack or stolen account. Emily had secrets. And whoever Raina Harper was, they were tied to her. My hands shook as I checked the device's IP logs looking for any clue. One stood out, a frequent connection to an address downtown, not far from Emily's office. I didn't know what I'd find there, but I had no choice. This had gone too far. That night, I told Emily I'd be working late, kissed her goodnight, and set out to follow the trail. The address led to an unremarkable office building. Most of the windows were dark, save for a few dim lights on the third floor. My heart pounded as I climbed the stairs, every creak of the old metal echoing in the silence. The door to Suite 307 was slightly ajar. I pushed it open, and what I saw stopped me cold. The room was cluttered with computer monitors, cables snaking across the floor, and stacks of papers. On the largest screen, Emily's face stared back at me. Her stolen profile displayed alongside several others. Notes were scribbled on sticky pads and pinned to a corkboard. Verified. Activity confirmed. And disturbingly, personal contact maintained. "Can I help you?" a voice said behind me. I spun around to see a man in his late 30s, glasses perched on his nose, his expression one of feigned innocence. "What is this?" I demanded, gesturing to the chaotic setup. "Just analytics," he said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "But you shouldn't be here. You're using my wife's photos," I snapped. "You're invading her privacy." The man's smile faded. "It's not personal, just business." "Business?" My voice rose. "This is my life, my wife. You call that business?" He raised his hands, backing away slightly. "Calm down. No one's hurt. It's for analysis." Analysis? I was shaking now, a mix of rage and disbelief. "You're violating her trust for analysis?" Before he could answer, I noticed a folder on the desk labeled Client Interactions. Without thinking, I grabbed it. "I'm taking this to the police." His demeanor shifted instantly. "Wait," he said, stepping forward. "You don't understand." But I didn't wait to hear the rest. I stormed out, clutching the folder like a lifeline. My mind raced as I drove home. What had I just uncovered? And how deep did this go? When I got home, Emily was waiting for me, her expression a mix of concern and confusion. "You're late," she said. I held up the folder. "We need to talk." I stared at Emily as she stood in the dimly lit living room. The folder I held felt heavy, not because of its physical weight, but because of the truths it might contain. Her confusion turned to something else, a flicker of fear, guilt, I couldn't tell. "Where were you tonight?" she asked cautiously. Her tone was calm, but her eyes darted to the folder like it was a live grenade. "I could ask you the same," I said, placing the folder on the coffee table between us. "Do you know what this is?" She shook her head slowly, her lips pressed into a thin line. "What are you talking about, Liam? What's going on?" I leaned forward, trying to keep my voice steady. "I found this in an office downtown. Someone has been using your photos. Our photos. There's a whole setup, Emily. Fake profiles, stolen moments. I saw your face plastered across multiple screens." Her expression shifted. Shock, confusion, and then anger. "What? Are you accusing me of something? I don't even know what you're talking about." "Don't," I snapped, my frustration boiling over. "Don't act like you don't know. I've been seeing signs for weeks, those late-night phone calls, your sudden meetings. And then I find this." I gestured at the folder. Emily's face flushed. "You're being ridiculous. I have no idea who would do this. And you think I'd willingly be part of some scam? Do you even hear yourself?" "Then explain the hotel photo," I said coldly. Her mouth opened slightly, but no words came out. The one of you in that dress. The one I've never seen before. Was that just for fun? A little memory you wanted to keep for yourself?" Her eyes widened, and for a moment, I thought I saw the truth crack through her defenses. But then, just as quickly, her expression hardened. "You've been spying on me," she accused, her voice trembling. "Going through my things. Following me. What the hell, Liam? Do you even trust me anymore?" "No, Emily," I said, my voice low and deliberate. "I don't. Not after tonight." The room fell silent, the tension between us thick and suffocating. Finally, she folded her arms, her defensive posture betraying her vulnerability. "If you don't believe me," she said softly, "then I don't know what else I can say." I stared at her, searching her face for something, anything that would make sense of the chaos in my mind. But all I saw was a wall, one she wasn't ready to let down. "You need to tell me the truth, Emily," I said. "Because if you don't, I'll find it myself." Her lips trembled, and for a split second, I thought she might break. Instead, she turned on her heel and walked away, leaving me alone in the dim light with the folder and a head full of unanswered questions. I didn't follow her. Instead, I sat down and opened the folder, flipping through its contents. There were receipts, hotel bookings, emails, and detailed notes about interactions between Madeline and various online accounts. As I scanned the pages, a new name appeared again and again. Jason Carter. I didn't recognize the name, but the messages between Jason and Madeline made it clear. They weren't strangers. They had history, the kind that wasn't supposed to exist in my marriage. I closed the folder and stared blankly at the wall. Whoever Jason Carter was, he was the next piece of this puzzle, and I was going to find him. The name Jason Carter burned in my mind like a brand. I barely slept that night, tossing and turning in the dark, replaying every interaction Emily and I had shared over the past few months. Every laugh, every kiss, every moment now felt like a possible lie. By morning, I'd made up my mind. I was going to find Jason Carter. While Emily busied herself in the kitchen with Claire's breakfast, I sat in my office, my laptop glowing faintly in the dim light. A quick search revealed more than I expected. Jason Carter wasn't some shadowy figure. He was real, accessible, and local. His social media was public, showcasing a curated life of gym selfies, expensive dinners, and travel shots. And then there was the photo that stopped me cold. It was a selfie taken outside a hotel downtown, the same hotel from the photo of Emily in the folder. Jason stood there, smug, his arm draped around an unseen person cropped out of the frame. My stomach twisted. Was it Emily? I clicked on his profile, scrolling through posts and tagged photos. Every detail felt like another piece of a puzzle I didn't want to solve. Comments under his posts gave me more breadcrumbs, mentions of frequenting a particular bar near his office. I had a location. Now I just needed a plan. That evening, I told Emily I had to work late again. Her face betrayed nothing. No suspicion, no guilt, just a casual, "Okay, I'll see you later." I grabbed my keys, determined to put an end to the spiraling questions in my mind. The bar was exactly what I expected. Dim lighting, overpriced drinks, and a crowd of professionals unwinding after long workdays. I scanned the room, my heart pounding in my chest, until I saw him. Jason Carter sat at the bar, nursing a whiskey, his phone glowing in his hand. He looked exactly like his photos, confident, polished, and utterly unaware of the storm heading his way. I approached slowly, every step feeling heavier than the last. He didn't notice me until I was standing beside him. "Jason Carter?" I asked, my voice steady, despite the anger bubbling beneath the surface. He looked up, surprised, but his expression quickly shifted to guarded curiosity. "Yeah, who's asking?" I extended a hand, feigning a casual demeanor. "Liam, Emily's husband." The shift in his face was almost imperceptible, but it was there, a flicker of recognition, followed by a carefully neutral mask. He didn't shake my hand. Instead, he leaned back slightly, his gaze narrowing. "Emily," he repeated, playing dumb. "I don't think I know who you're talking about." "Don't," I snapped, dropping the act. "I've seen the photos. I know about the messages. I'm here for answers." Jason sighed, setting his drink down. "Look, man, I don't want any trouble. Whatever you think you know, it's not what it seems." "Then explain it to me," I said, my voice rising. "Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you've been meeting my wife behind my back." He hesitated, glancing around as if weighing whether to cause a scene. Finally, he gestured to an empty booth in the corner. "Fine, let's talk." We sat down, the low hum of the bar providing a strange backdrop to our tense conversation. Jason leaned forward, his voice low but firm. "I don't know how much you've seen, but I need you to understand, this isn't just about her." "What the hell does that mean?" I demanded. He ran a hand through his hair, exhaling sharply. "I didn't seek her out, okay? She came to me. She said things weren't working with you, that she needed something else." The words hit me like a physical blow. "So you thought you'd give it to her, just like that?" "It wasn't like that," he said quickly. "It wasn't serious. She made it clear she wasn't leaving you. I didn't think it would go this far." "Go this far?" My voice was barely a whisper, shaking with rage. "What exactly did you think was going to happen?" Jason didn't answer, his silence saying more than words ever could. I stared at him, my fists clenched under the table. Part of me wanted to lash out, to wipe that smug indifference off his face, but the other part, the part still reeling from the betrayal, needed more. Is it over? I asked finally, my voice cold. Or are you still seeing her? Jason hesitated, his gaze dropping to the table. I haven't seen her in weeks, he admitted. She said she wanted to work things out with you. I didn't argue. The room felt like it was closing in, the walls pressing against me with the weight of everything I'd just learned. I stood abruptly, my chair scraping against the floor. If I ever see you near her again, I said, my voice low and dangerous, you'll regret it. Jason didn't respond, just nodded slightly, his expression grim. Without another word, I turned and left the bar, my mind a whirlwind of anger, hurt, and disbelief. When I got home, Emily was waiting for me in the living room. Her face lit up with a smile that felt like a cruel joke now. How was work? She asked, her tone light and casual. I stared at her for a long moment, my jaw clenched. We need to talk, I said finally. Her smile faltered, and for the first time, I saw it, fear, flickering in her eyes. I walked out of the bar, my fists clenched, my mind racing. Jason Carter's words played over and over in my head. She said she wanted to work things out with you. His excuses, his dismissive tone, it all felt like another betrayal. Was he telling the truth? Was Emily? The drive home was a blur. I parked the car in the driveway, sitting for a moment in the dark, the engine idling as I tried to gather my thoughts. What was I supposed to say to her? How was I supposed to confront the woman who'd kept so much from me? When I stepped inside, Emily was in the living room, her knees pulled up to her chest as she sat on the couch. The TV was on, but she wasn't watching it. Her eyes flicked to me as soon as I entered, wide and cautious, like she already knew I'd uncovered something she couldn't explain away. You're late, she said softly, her voice almost cracking. I didn't answer. I just stood there, staring at her, the weight of everything pressing down on me. We need to talk, I said finally, my voice firm but quiet. She nodded slowly, her hands gripping her knees as if bracing for impact. Okay, what's this about? I stepped closer, tossing my keys onto the coffee table. Jason Carter? Her face froze. It was subtle, just a flicker of recognition, a slight stiffening of her posture, but I saw it. What about him? She asked, her voice carefully measured. Don't play dumb, Emily. I talked to him tonight. I know. She paled, her lips parting as if to say something, but no words came out. The silence stretched between us, thick and suffocating, until I couldn't take it anymore. I know about the dinners, the hotel, I said, my voice rising with every word. I know about the messages, the photos, and I know he asked you to leave me. Emily flinched as if I'd struck her. Liam, she began, but I cut her off. Don't. Just tell me the truth. I've spent weeks trying to figure out what's going on, and I'm done guessing. So tell me, what the hell is this? Her shoulders slumped, and for the first time, I saw the fight drain out of her. She looked at me, her eyes filled with tears, and said, It's not what you think. Then what is it? I demanded. She wiped at her face, taking a shaky breath before answering. Yes, I had dinner with Jason a few times, and yes, he said things about leaving you, about starting something new, but I never... Her voice cracked, and she looked down. I never cheated on you, Liam. I laughed bitterly, the sound harsh and hollow in the quiet room. You expect me to believe that? After everything I've seen? Yes, she said, looking up at me with desperate eyes. Because it's the truth. I was lost, Liam. I've been lost for so long, and I didn't know how to tell you. Jason listened. He made me feel seen, but I swear to you, it never went further than that. Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. Part of me wanted to believe her, to cling to the possibility that she wasn't lying. But another part, the part that had been blindsided by those photos and messages, couldn't let go of the doubt. You've been lying to me for weeks, I said, my voice low and trembling with anger. How am I supposed to trust anything you say now? I don't know, she whispered, but I'm telling you the truth. And if there's even a part of you that believes me, please, let me prove it. I stared at her, my chest heaving, my mind a mess of anger, pain, and confusion. She took a step closer, her voice soft but steady. I don't want to lose you, Liam. I want to fix this. Whatever it takes, I'll do it, but you have to let me try. I turned away, running a hand through my hair as I tried to think. Everything in me screamed to walk away, to leave the house and clear my head. But when I glanced back at her, the tears streaming down her face, the raw honesty in her expression, I hesitated. I don't know if I can, I said finally, but I'll try, for now. Her sob of relief was barely audible, but she nodded quickly, clutching her arms around herself. As I walked upstairs to the bedroom, I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't over, and there were still too many questions, too many loose threads. And no matter how much I wanted to believe her, the doubt lingered. Jason Carter might be out of the picture, but the cracks in our marriage, those were going to take a long time to heal. The days that followed were quiet, but the silence wasn't comforting. It was tense, fragile, like a thread stretched too tight, ready to snap. Emily made an effort. She stayed home more, asked about my day, tried to rekindle moments of intimacy. But for me, it all felt hollow, as if I were watching a play where the actors knew their lines but had lost the passion for the performance. Jason Carter's words still haunted me. Emily's insistence that she hadn't cheated warred with the images I couldn't erase from my mind. Every time she looked at her phone, I wondered who was on the other side of the screen. Every time she left the house, I fought the urge to follow her. One evening after Clara had gone to bed, Emily approached me cautiously. "We should talk," she said, sitting across from me at the dining table. I nodded, folding my arms as I leaned back. "I'm listening." She took a deep breath, her hands trembling slightly. "I've been thinking about everything, about us, and I want to be honest with you. Completely honest." I tensed, bracing myself for another blow. "Go on." "I wasn't lying when I said I didn't cheat," she began. "But I need you to understand why I let it go so far with Jason. I was lonely, Liam. For years, I felt like we were just coexisting, like you were more interested in work, in routines, than in me. And I told myself it didn't matter, but it did." Her voice broke, and she looked down, her fingers twisting together. "When Jason came along, he made me feel like I was worth something again, like I was seen. I let it go too far because I needed that. I needed to feel alive." Her words stung, each one cutting deeper than the last. But beneath the anger, I felt a flicker of something else. Guilt. Had I really been so blind to her unhappiness? So wrapped up in my own life that I hadn't noticed her slipping away? "What do you want from me, Emily?" I asked finally. "Forgiveness? A clean slate? I want a chance to make things right," she said, meeting my gaze. "I know I've broken your trust, and I don't expect it to come back overnight. But I love you, Liam. I always have. And I want to fight for us if you'll let me." I sat back, her words swirling in my mind. Could I forgive her? Could I rebuild what we'd lost? The rational part of me screamed that I'd be a fool to try, that the damage was too great. But another part, the part that remembered the early years of our marriage, the laughter, the connection, wanted to believe it was possible. "I don't know if I can trust you again," I admitted, "but I do know that I don't want to lose you. So if you're serious about fixing this, I'll try." Tears welled in her eyes, and she nodded quickly. "I am. I'll do whatever it takes." In the weeks that followed, we began the slow, painful process of repairing our marriage. Emily deleted her social media, cut all ties with Jason, and started going to therapy. I went with her, though I wasn't sure what I hoped to gain from it. Trust didn't return easily. Every time her phone buzzed or she worked late, the doubts crept back in. But we kept at it day by day. It wasn't perfect, and maybe it never would be. But for the first time in a long time, we were talking, really talking, and that felt like a step in the right direction. As I watched her laughing with Clara one sunny afternoon, a tiny spark of hope flickered in my chest. Maybe, just maybe, we could make it through this storm.